Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Tira Bhavaneshwari Jamuna Tira Bhavaneshwari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Tira Bhavaneshwari Jamuna Tira Bhavaneshwari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Stotara Sarashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinatha Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Shri Vrindavan Dhamma ki jai. Shri Navadvip Dham ki jai. Shri Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namacharya Srila Das Thakur ki jai. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 7th chapter, 9th text, right? Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya Uvacha. Sayam Bhagavatamaya. Yanayema Virudyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Kripanyam Uttabandhanam. Maitreya Uvacha. Sayam Bhagavatamaya. Yanayema Virudyate. Irasya Vimuktasya. Kripanyam Uttabandhanam. Maitreya Uvacha. Sayam Bhagavatamaya. Yanayena Virudyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Uttabandhanam. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Sa'iyam, such a statement, Bhagavataha, of the personality of Godhead, Maya, illusion, yet that which, Nayena, by logic, Virudyate, becomes contradictory. Ishvarasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vimuktasya, of the ever liberated. Karpanyam, insufficiency. Uta, as also. What to speak of? Bandhanam, bondage. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is overcome by illusion, or Maya, and at the same time they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. Responsibly, Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is overcome by illusion, or Maya. And at the same time, they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes it appears that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is 100% spiritual, cannot be the cause of the illusory potency which covers the knowledge of the individual soul. But factually, there is no doubt that the illusory external energy is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. When Vyasadeva realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he saw the Lord along with his external potency, which covers the pure knowledge of the individual living entities. Why the external energy acts in this way may be considered as follows, as analyzed by great commentators like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami. Although the material illusory energy is distinct from the spiritual energy, it is one of the many energies of the Lord, and thus the material modes of nature, the mode of goodness, etc., are surely qualities of the Lord. The energy and the energetic personality of Godhead are not different, and although such energy is one with the Lord, he is never overpowered by it. Although the living entities are also parts and parcels of the Lord, they are overcome by the material energy. The inconceivable yogam aishvaryam of the Lord, as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9.5, is misunderstood by the froggish philosophers. Don't think there's such a word as froggish. I think Prabhupada just made it up. It's a very good word, though. In order to support a theory that Narayan, the Lord himself, becomes a Daridra Narayana, a poor man, they propose that the material energy overcomes the Supreme Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, however, offer a very nice example and explanation. No word in the English dictionaries. Maybe it's in the Hindi dictionaries. They say that although the sun is all light, the clouds, darkness, and snowfall are all part and parcel of the sun. Without the sun, there's no possibility of the skies being overcast with clouds or darkness, nor can there be snowfall on the earth. Although life is sustained by the sun, life is also disturbed by the darkness and snowfall produced by the sun. But it is also a fact that the sun itself is never overcome by darkness, clouds, or snowfall. The sun is far, far away from such disturbances. Only those who have a poor fund of knowledge say that the sun is covered by a cloud or by darkness. Similarly, the Supreme Brahman, or the Para-Brahman, this personality of Godhead, is always unaffected by the influence of the material energy of Godhead. Similarly, the Supreme Brahman, or the Para-Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is always unaffected by the influence of the material energy. Although it is one of his energies. Parashya Shakti Vividaya Shruyate. There is no reason to assert that the Supreme Brahman is overpowered by the illusory energy. The clouds, darkness, and snowfall can cover only a very insignificant portion of the sun's rays. Similarly, the modes of material nature may react upon the ray-like living entities. It is the misfortune of the living entity, certainly not without reason, that the influence of the material energy acts on his pure consciousness and eternal bliss. The covering up of pure consciousness and eternal bliss is due to avidya karma sangya, the energy which acts as the infinitesimal living entities who misuse their minute independence. According to Vishnu Purana, Bhagavad Gita, and all other Vedic literatures, the living entities are generated from the Tatastha energy of the Lord, and thus they are always the energy of the Lord and are not the energetic. The living entities are like the sun's rays, although, as explained above, there is no qualitative difference between the sun and its rays. The sun's rays are sometimes overpowered by another energy of the sun, namely by clouds or by snowfall. Similarly, although the living entities are qualitatively one with the supreme energy of the Lord, they have the tendency to be overpowered by the inferior material energy. In the Vedic hymns, it is said that the living entities are like the sparks of a fire. The sparks of fire also are fire, but the burning potency of the sparks is different from that of the original fire. When the sparks fly out of touch with the original fire, they come under the influence of a non-fiery atmosphere. Thus, they maintain the potency to be again one with the fire as sparks, but not as the original fire. The sparks can everlastingly remain within the original fire as its parts and parcels, but the moment the sparks become separated from the original fire, their misfortunes and miseries begin. The clear conclusion is that the Supreme Lord, who is the original fire, is never overpowered, but the infinitesimal sparks of the fire can become overpowered by the illusory effects of Maya. It is a most ludicrous argument to say that the Supreme Lord is overpowered by his own material energy. The Lord is the master of the material energy, but the living entities are in the conditioned state, and they are controlled by the material energy. That is the version of Bhagavad Gita. The froggish philosophers who put forward the argument that the Supreme Lord is overpowered by the material mode of goodness are themselves illusioned by the same material energy, although they think of themselves as liberated souls. They support their argument by a false, laborious jugglery of words, which is a gift of the same illusory energy of the Lord. But the poor froggish philosophers, due to a false sense of knowledge, cannot understand the situation. Oma Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Mukam Karoti Bachalam Bangam Longaya Tegirim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Guru Dinatarane. The question often comes up, if God is all good, why is there evil in the world? This is especially asked by newcomers. Once Srila Prabhupada was flying in an airplane, and after it was on automatic pilot, the pilot came back and sat down next to him. And he asked the same question. He said, if God is all good, his question was, if God is all good, how can evil exist in the world? And so Prabhupada explained that God is all good, but we have our independence. And if we turn our backs to God, that is the source of evil. When I was in school, we had a big debate about whether events shape people or people shape events, and it went on for about an hour with no conclusion. So the idea is that we can have free will, but we have limitations of our free will. And their destiny is always acting on us, but it too is limited. And the example that Prabhupada gave was that in this country we have to drive on the left side. But if we drive on the right side, using our independent mentality, it's dangerous, very dangerous. We can be actually in an accident or killed. So we do have free will, but our free will is limited. It's not one or the other, either free will or destiny. It's unlimited. So this debate between the Vaishnavas and the Mayavadis is quite old. It wasn't that Prabhupada suddenly adopted a policeman mentality, that he was trying to distinguish between Vaishnavism and Mayavadis. And in many places, he rails against the Mayavadis, how they are so misled, and how they're using so many false types of logic to justify their existence. So sometimes it's also asked why Shankaracharya, who is an incarnation of Lord Shiva, would speak against Vaishnavism and promote Mayavadism. So they have many logical examples, like the pot, the air in the pot, or the ether in the pot, or the space in the pot is the same as the space in the universe. They also argue yatamat tatapat, that any path you take will get you to the Supreme Lord. So they have many arguments, and these arguments have been put forward by Shankaracharya. And why has Lord Shiva had one of his disciples talk about Mayavad philosophy? Well, he says that the reason that he did this was to delude the atheists. So why are the atheists to be deluded? So the atheists have to have some philosophy. They have to justify their existence by some philosophy, other than just saying that God is impersonal. God is everywhere. So they have to have these types of arguments. And it's said that it's difficult to understand. It's very difficult to understand how Lord Shiva can have an incarnation explain Mayavadi philosophy, when Mayavadi philosophy is opposed to Vaishnava philosophy, very much so. And it's been going on for a long time. This conversation with Maitreya took place thousands of years ago. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta also used to criticize the Mayavadis. And there are many pseudo-Vaishnava sects. As I was mentioning the other day, there are approximately 11, 12, or 13 pseudo-Vaishnava sects, and they're all listed by name in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and especially in the Chaitanya Chaitamrita. The names of all the pseudo-Vaishnava sects are listed. I'm not sure about Bhagavatam. I know they're in the Chaitanya Chaitamrita. Once I visited a university in the Washington, D.C. area. It's called the American University. And we visited a professor there. And this professor teaches Sanskrit. And he was very impressed with the writings of Shankaracharya. He thought that Shankaracharya had perfected Sanskrit, and he was able to memorize and quote many verses of Sanskrit. So not only was he espousing Mayavad philosophy, but he was doing it in such an expert way, in such a grammatically attractive and poetic way, that even great American scholars who study Sanskrit think that this is the essence of spiritual life. They think that spiritual life is based on impersonalism, that God is all one. And it is said here that God is all one, that He is everywhere. He's in the atom, He's in our heart, He's everywhere, but at the same time, He's not affected by these things. So in a sense, Krishna was the master of what in the corporate world they call empowerment. Maya carries out Krishna's orders. And the demigods also carry out Krishna's orders. It's very difficult to understand how Krishna can be in charge of everything. It is said that not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Supreme Lord. But Krishna is not a control freak. These things happen, but He is also in charge of them. And this is a very difficult thing to understand. And Prabhupada said that the philosophy of simultaneously one and difference, achintya veda veda tattva, should be discussed every year by the leaders of the society. It's not a simple phrase. Oneness in diversity. There's even an organization in America called Oneness and Diversity. But it's a very I think the European, what's it called? The European Union, yeah, has adopted that as their slogan, diversity and unity. But it is a very difficult thing to understand. The philosophy of Krishna consciousness is a very difficult thing to understand. How there can be evil in the world and how there can also be a God who is all good. This is the reason that many people become atheists. They think, well, if there's war, if there's crime and irreligion and so many things, then God must not exist because he would correct everything. But he gives us all freedom. Even if we have limited freedom, we are given that freedom by Krishna. So that's an energy of Krishna. And that energy is also mentioned here. So Prabhupada brought many things with him. He brought a very complex philosophy, which many people took up, and he brought with him a culture of eating, a culture of dressing, a culture of etiquette, and a culture of addressing people, it's a very complicated thing. So I'm going to tell a little bit about Jayananda because there was very little or no talk about him on his disappearance day, which happened today, very recently. I think it was on the day after Nrsimha Chaturdashi. And one of the interesting things that happened was, as you know, Jayananda passed away, and he had leukemia, or he had a terminal type of cancer, and he passed away. And but the Ratha Yatra, which was taking place in Los Angeles, the first Los Angeles Ratha Yatra took place anyway, even though he started it and he was pushing it. Two devotees, namely myself and a devotee named Bubrahan, pushed forward with it. And every day we would encounter various obstacles, and we would come back to Jayananda and report to him what we did during that day. And being his usual humble self, he said, "I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you do it." And that was his comment every day. So somehow or other, the Ratha Yatra that he organized, that he conceived of, was broadcast on the Sunday night news. And the Sunday night news, it was a CBS broadcast at that time, was filled with bad things, plane crashes, and who won the football game, and what diseases are prominent and that sort of stuff. But for some reason, and I don't want to go into all this, they decided to talk about the Ratha Yatra in Los Angeles, which is a good news. And this is a broadcast that went all over the country. Upwards to 20 million people actually saw it. And what they saw was out of these thousands of people that were in the Ratha Yatra that came to it to see what it was like, there was a lot of publicity. The reporter, her name was Karen Lovejoy, that was her name, encountered the parents of Jayananda, Mr. and Mrs. Kaur, and she had interviewed thousands and thousands of other people, but this was what was broadcast on the news. And she asked them, she said, they were elderly people, they were in their 40s and 50s at that time, and she said, where are you from? Thinking that they would say, some part of Los Angeles, Echo Park or whatever it was, but they said, we're from Grand Junction, Colorado. Grand Junction, Colorado, the reporter said, that's a very long ways away from here. Why did you come to this festival in Los Angeles? What brought you here? And they said, well, our son died about 3 or 4 months ago, and he conceived of this festival in this city. And he was a structural engineer, and he knew how to build carts. So they had come, and that was what was broadcast on the national news. And interestingly enough, the person who presented this particular function was a regular broadcaster on the evening news on Sunday night. So although the evening news is usually filled with tragedies and ghastliness, they had decided to broadcast something about the Ratha Yatra, about a 4 or 5 minute broadcast, which was seen by a lot of people. And then after Jayananda had passed away, I'm going back in time a little bit, but this is before the Ratha Yatra, they went to his funeral. His funeral was conducted in a what they call a memorial park, or in a memorial park they either bury or cremate people that have died. And in this case, they cremated because that's what he wanted. So the way the cremations existed in that particular park, where the body was placed in a cardboard box, just the size that would fit the body, and then it went up a conveyor belt into a furnace, and the furnace completely burned the body down to ashes. And the ashes eventually were taken to Mayapur and deposited in the Ganges. And as her parents watched the whole thing, and we had a kirtan in the park. There was Rameshwar, myself, and a few other devotees, Shandanacharya, and another devotee. They were very poised and very sober. But when they saw the body go up the conveyor belt, his mother broke into tears and uncontrollably began crying. So then we went back to the office of a devotee named Rameshwar. And he has a very well-appointed sort of conference room. And then the parents of Jayananda went back with us, and they told stories about Jayananda, stories that we had never heard before, how he drove his car and how he acted in the church and all sorts of things. And it was a very joyous occasion because the funeral was a very sad occasion, but the aftermath later on, when the very attractive and fun-loving stories were told, it turned into an event, a joyous event, actually, even for the parents who were very aggrieved at their son's death. And it wasn't long after Jayananda died that they came out to see the funeral. So that's those are the stories. Oh, and there's one other story that happened. This is also after Jayananda passed away, but quite a while after he passed away. There was a devotee named Andrew Hallam who lived in Thousand Oaks, California, which is just north of Los Angeles. It's near the San Fernando Valley. And he's the person. He doesn't live anymore. He's departed. He's probably, if he had still lived, he'd be in his hundreds now. But anyway, somehow or other, he was invited to the Rath Yatra Festival in Durban, South Africa, in Chatsworth, and there was a picture of Jayananda hanging in the Rath Yatra cart, and he thought he recognized the person, but he wasn't sure because Jayananda had a shaved head, and he started asking a lot of people, "Who is that guy?" And nobody knew what his name was other than Jayananda. And finally, he encountered a person who knew that his name was James Kaur, and that's how he knew him, James Kaur, or Jim. You knew him as Jim. And so he remembered that Jim Kaur Senior, his father's name was also Jim Kaur, worked for a paint company called Sherwin-Williams. Sherwin-Williams. That's the name of the company. I don't know if it exists anymore. But he made a long-distance phone call. He was so excited that he knew Jim Kaur and that he was celebrated in the Rath Yatra Festival, that he made a long-distance telephone call all the way from South Africa to somewhere where Sherwin-Williams is located in Los Angeles or New York. And he told the father that your son's picture was hanging in a Rath Yatra car all the way down here in Durban, South Africa. And I want you to know that he's become very famous. And then he went on and so that became part of his newsletter. His newsletter was to all the former students at Oakwood High School in Dayton, Ohio. Oakwood, that's where he went to high school. Dayton in Oakwood High School in Dayton, Ohio. So they were very, very, so to say, excited to find that their son was not only a great devotee, but he had become a legend in the Krishna consciousness movement. And Prabhupada had said that we should celebrate his departure every day it comes up, every year, just like we celebrate the appearance and disappearance days of other great acharyas. Anyway, so that's my 2 paisa worth. Any questions? Or comments? Yes? Sananda.
Was it by chance that the reporter interviewed Jayananda's parents?
Was it by chance?
Yeah.
Well, it was sort of by chance because she had interviewed dozens of people beforehand. But when these were the parents of the man who masterminded the whole festival, it was too hard to resist putting it on television. And the editors of that television program chose that particular interview to be the one that was broadcast all over the country. So in a way, it was kind of like interesting that she happened to fall upon those people. But in a way, it was Krishna's arrangement.
And could you maybe share with us the qualities that Srila Prabhupada saw in Jayananda to say that we should celebrate his disappearance every year?
Well, something happens in the mind of a sadhu when they recognize that a person is naturally Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada recognized that in Jayananda, that he was, from the very beginning, he was very advanced in his Krishna consciousness. In fact, in the Nectar of Devotion, I don't know if it's still published, in the introduction, he mentions Jayananda by name as having contributed $5,000 for the publication of this book. So Prabhupada knew that he was not an ordinary person, and when he passed away, when he departed this world, the garland from Lord Jagannath in the Los Angeles Temple happened in Los Angeles. The garland from the Jagannath deity fell to the feet of the Lord, and that garland was brought into Jayananda's room in New Dwarka in Los Angeles after he had passed away, and put on his body. But when Prabhupada heard all this and saw the photos of the Rath Yatra, he was doubly impressed. And then he went on to say that we should celebrate the disappearance of Jayananda as we celebrate the appearance and disappearance of all the great sadhus and Vaishnavas.
Because is there anyone else that Srila Prabhupada says to celebrate like that, of his disciples?
I don't know of anyone else. There may be some, but I don't know of anyone. He wrote a letter to Jayananda after he passed away, which he would theoretically receive in the spiritual world, and he said that you have attained the spiritual world. He said that you have attained the spiritual world. And I don't think he wrote letters like that to any of his disciples after they passed away, after they departed. You have attained the spiritual world.
Thank you for so much.
I also heard that just one last thing, that when the Los Angeles Rath Yatra took place, people took many photographs of it, and Prabhupada saw all the photographs. This is in the day when there was no such thing as internet, so they were hard copies of photographs, and about 50 photographs were given to Prabhupada, and he looked at the photographs and he was just completely amazed, and he said, according to a devotee who was there, he said, "We have never seen such carts." And then he asked all the devotees, he was giving darshan at the time, to leave the room so that he could meditate upon the Rath Yatra that was taking place on the other side of the world. So any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
You pass.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You mentioned that we know that everything happens with the will of Krishna, and here we have free will as well. So how does it work together? Means like we have free will and everything happens as per instructions of Krishna.
Well, when things happen, either good or bad, we say it's Krishna's arrangement. So we tend to think that everything happens by the mercy of Krishna, even evil, even robberies and things like that, or even killings. They do happen by the arrangement of Krishna. So these are some of the things that are very difficult to understand, as Prabhupada has said in the purport. It's not easy to understand how Krishna can support such things as evil and crime, but he does give them the philosophy that what they're doing is necessary and right.
So means if I act according to my free will, that means I have some Krishna's wish as well along with.
Well,
that.
it's also said in Bhagavad Gita that we think we're doing something, but actually it's carried out by nature. So Krishna is indirectly saying that destiny is always acting, but a more important and easier to understand thing from our point of view is that everyone has their own karma. We have karma from our past, we have karma from last life, we have karma from the life before, and so that is also Krishna's arrangement. Very difficult to understand, but true. And sometimes people ask, well, are we still subject to karma even though we're devotees? And the answer that Prabhupada gave was that yes, it's still Krishna's arrangement, but he takes away our karma. As he says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharma Parityaja Mamekam, a very famous verse, that I'll absolve you from all sinful reactions. So that's encouraging. There's something encouraging. And we're here because we're encouraged. Any other comments or questions? Yes?
Just asking. Just with permission, Guru Maharaj, I just had a few remarks on Jayananda Prabhu, just things that we normally...
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I just had a couple of remarks on Jayananda, if you don't mind.
Okay.
It's just, these things we hear most years, that he, in one darshan, he was falling asleep, nodding off, and devotees were trying to, when Prabhupada was there, he was trying to wake him up, and Srila Prabhupada ended up chastising those devotees. Said, leave him alone, he works harder than all of you put together. You know? So he was known as an extremely dedicated hard worker. He made devotees by speaking to them without them even seeing his face. You know? And there was no internet in those days. So he would be under a car, and there'd be two legs poking out, and someone would come along and he'd start talking to them. And they'd end up going to the temple, becoming devotees, just by hearing a voice from under a car. He would putting out the garbage. People would meet him and be so impressed. I said, if this is the garbage guy, imagine what all the other guys must be like. And after he passed away, they went and saw the fruit and vegetable suppliers he would regularly go there, and he had a sweet relationship with them. When those people found out he passed away, they immediately broke up crying. They were so attached and impressed by this wonderful devotee. He just from day one he dedicated his whole being to serving Srila Prabhupada, and he was a leader and a hard worker, and that's why he's very famous in our movement and why he's celebrated. That's why I just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much. Actually, these events are written in a paper that was put together by Kalakanta, not the Minister of Cow Protection, but the Kalakanta in Florida. And he's a Prabhupada disciple. And so he wrote a lot of things. And also there's a book, I think it's Vishoka is the author of it, about Jayananda. If you're interested in Jayananda's life, there's a whole book about him. I don't know how many pages, it's probably 200 or 300 pages long. I don't know, it's Vishoka is the author, Visoka. I don't know what the name of it is. But he was, in the subtitle I think is an American saint. But I don't know if his name is in the title of it, Jayananda. But if you look on the internet, you can probably find it there. His name is Vishoka, Visoka.
It's available because I ordered one for you.
Pardon?
I ordered one of those books for you.
Oh, thank you.
So I was able, well, you've got it, but we were able to find it very easily on the internet.
So hopefully by next year, I don't know if Jayananda's disappearance day is in the worldly calendar.
It is.
Oh, it is. Okay, so I take that back. It's already happened.
Yeah, it's on the class calendar too. We put it up.
Okay, and it's also on the class roster.
And also just what we did for many, many years, we've stopped doing it, is Jayananda was very fond of cauliflower pakoras as one of his favourite things. And on this day, we used to cook up a lot of cauliflower pakoras for all the devotees. So it'd be a nice tradition to begin again, you know, to remember him on that particular day. Yeah, we used to put his picture up.
One last story is that there was a devotee in Los Angeles named Viharini who knew that Jayananda was very fond of pakoras. So one day she made a tub of pakoras. Maybe there were 100 of them in there. I don't know how many a tub holds. But Jayananda was very ill, and he ate the entire tub full of pakoras. And he didn't get even more sick. He was just happy to have them. And we were just amazed that he could eat 100 pakoras in his condition. Cauliflower pakoras, that is. That's one of the words that we learned from Prabhupada, pakora. Most people don't even know what it is, but we know what it is. Pakora, samosa, pukka.
Chaunts, too. They don't know chaunts.
Huh?
Chaunts.
Torrents?
Chaunts. You know when you make
Oh, torts.
chaunts. When you make a chaunt, you know.
Chaunts, yeah, chaunts. That's another word we've all learned, chaunts. Okay, Hare Krishna. Yeah, that's it.
Yep. Yes.
So we used to carry it in the wheelchair and see how the rough cut was progressing.
He ordered all the timbers from his bed, by phone.